Hello everyone, welcome back to Gelvin Valley. We are on the opening round of one of the home place fields. It's a very steep field down this hillside here. It's a good place to have a hillside combine to help us harvest it. This is a field formerly was grasslands. Maybe that's what the map author intended for it. We've turned it into an arable farm. And I realize here as I look at this field, I have nearly a full trailer and a full combine. Not the best situation to be in, but I almost think I have a course already set up in this. Let's see, we're field 37. Aha, 37 combine to storage. I'm going to load that up. I'm going to tell him what combine to look for. I'm going to activate four-wheel drive so we can stay on this here hillside. But for the moment, I'm going to go manually empty the combine, which I believe is over here. It's early morning in the game. I don't know if we'd be combining at this time. If you can hold your nose for the moment, I'm probably going to drive over a little bit of the crop. It is steeper than I'll get out in this field here, and I love it. I don't know if this is something that would be farmed in real life, arable like this, or or even baled for that matter. This formerly was grasslands, and it is incredibly steep. It doesn't look that steep when we come in cab, but trust me, it is very steep. And with the fixes we've done to our little combine, it no longer levels the full way. And this is that's pretty realistic. In real life, oh, look at that, we're full. In real life, these combines, these machines have limitations, and they wouldn't necessarily be able to level as far as you may want them to. I think I mentioned before in here, I worked on the Lone Oak farm back in the day, and we had a couple hillside combines, and I believe the John Deere hillside would level up to a 45% grade. And you could take it on something steeper if you wished, uh, but obviously the steeper it gets, the more at risk you are for not even being able to stay on the hill. It'll start to slip the tires. So but it's still fun to try to work with a very steep hill. I like it anyways. Got no cash. Need to make money. Well, we're going to work on that. Last video I mentioned or continued talking about going to my son's graduation. This time my younger son. There was two of them in a row here, and it's fresh on my mind and just reminiscing my own school experiences. Not that they're necessarily of interest to anybody here, but I gotta have something to talk about, and so it's on my mind, and odds are these videos probably will only be seen by my kids at some point in the future. Who knows? So I think I'd spend some time talking about the teachers and some of their role and what they've done, and there was a lot of gratitude expressed by these young people. I think even they'll recognize even more as they get older, just how much other people have invested in them. First of all, their parents, but then especially the teachers at school, the various subjects and character development. And I know sometimes we say we don't want teachers at a school particularly teaching morals or particularly religion or that kind of thing. There's a desire to keep those aspects of growing up kind of in the home. But really, I mean, the amount of time that kids are with teachers during the day, they're going to take in like a sponge just what kind of person that a teacher is, and their morals, their ability to judge and make decisions. So it's a big part of how they do stuff. And just looking back, I had some terrific teachers, especially as I look back to my high school years, but really the whole way through. Just some wonderful people that I'm really grateful to for the effort they put into me. And probably the only right thing to do is for all of us that have had an education or been blessed with those things is to pay it forward and try to help build other young people that will come after us. The only teacher I can think of, I generally very positive. The only teacher I can think that I remember that I felt a little negative about was, oh, what kind of a teacher was it? Don't remember the name, it isn't important. It was a global studies type class, where you learn about other cultures, you get exposed to kind of what a world market is. You just study global type things that happen. And I remember him making a comment once in class. I don't think he intended it to come across the way it did, but it left an imprint on me as a kid, and I've never forgotten it. And I think he could have worded it better than he did. Back in that time, it's probably, what would this have been, 1991, 92, somewhere in there, I think was a year I took this class. Japan was doing very well economically. They had a lot of smart people, engineers, they still do, of course. And he just made a comment to us, and, obviously I'm an American. He said, culturally speaking, the Japanese are better than you at mathematics and analytical thinking, but you're more creative. Well, I don't know. I don't believe the man was a racist at heart. I think he was trying to say something positive and just noting that there are differences in cultures, and there's probably statistics on that as to, in any given culture, how many people turn into, engineers or farmers or plumbers or all those kinds of things. But I never, that what he said to us never really set well with me. And looking back on it, it just sounds racist. I mean, even if it's true, I mean, do you tell a kid that someone else is better at something than that kid when you don't even know the kid, you don't know what their talents are, you just pick an entire ethnicity and say, well, they are better at you at such and such. um and maybe they are. I don't know. It's just something I've kind of thought about a number of times over the years. I think maybe he could have worded it a little better. Um, and I don't know. That particular teacher, it's for more than just that one particular comment, I guess. I can't really think of a lot of other specific examples, but it just, I didn't particularly care for that one. But one teacher out of, I don't know how many teachers you have when you go through grade school and high school. That's pretty good to have, because I mean, it's that way in real life too. Whether you hire, I mean, I'm an accountant. Not all accountants are created equal. I mean, you could hire a plumber. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. You get different ethics. So wouldn't the same be true in terms of teachers? There's maybe a minimum standards and what have you that you hope to get out of them, but there's going to be really, really good teachers, and somewhere in there, there's going to be a few bad apples and really, really bad ones. And I feel grateful. I'm thankful that I had quite a number of really good teachers, which is really helpful. Nowadays, anymore, with a lot of the stuff, they're asked to teach the kids along with the basics, the reading, writing, and arithmetic. And again, I really don't want to make this political. I'm kind of old school on that. I would prefer the kids know the basics and leave the rest to mom and dad at home. But more and more of that is getting pulled into school, and it doesn't always line up with the wishes of parents or those kinds of things as to what their kids are being taught. It's just kind of a harsh reality, and it's probably no different in other places of the world versus here. There's, some that feel they know what uh, what an education should be and what other topics, but I'm a firm believer in the basics. You gotta know how to read, how to write, and how to add and subtract. Those are very critical, and if you don't know how to do those, you're gonna have a hard time in life. So I especially appreciate the teachers who taught me how to do those things. When you're full up, buddy, you don't need to seek a combine. I wonder if he'll turn her. Let me turn him around manually. I better drive now. When I think of my college days, I don't know if anybody listening here, if they had went to university or something and took that kind of coursework. By and large, I'd say I had pretty decent teachers there too. But I would say it's more of a mixed bag. At the grade school and high school level, I think you attract the kind of person who genuinely loves to teach, and their intent, their goal is to build young people and to bring them up, with a certain level of knowledge. And at the university level, I know it's that way with some of the professors and in some of the coursework, but you also have some really smart people, that are attracted to the university setting, and all they want to do is be there so they can research or write a book or do those kinds of things. And I think sometimes the university says, all right, you can come here and do that, and we'll take you here because you bring in money and all that, but you're going to also have to teach these classes over here. Well, that person may not be a teacher type, but they're forced into it anyhow. And so at the college level, you often get into classes where it's pretty obvious the person instructing you doesn't know how to teach, or they do the best they can, but they're not the best at it that they could be. That's definitely a difference. I think a key difference between the two. But you got to do more learning on your own in college anyhow. There's just so much less class time and whatnot. Looking back, going back to high school and considering teachers, I think probably one of the best teachers I ever had, and I know, my brothers and my family kind of feel the same way. It didn't have anything to do with, the basics, the reading, writing, and arithmetic. We got all those. But there also is electives you could take, and a number of us took wood shop. And I did some choir for a couple years, and it wasn't until my senior year that I could fit in a wood shop class. I'd done some at home on my own, various projects, build birdhouses and chicken feeders and whatever I could concoct, just in the home workshop. But so I went into a woodworking class. It was the basic bonehead level, if you will. Start at the bottom. They treat you as if you don't know anything. And I knew a few things, like how to measure things with a tape measure. And so I go into this class, and they give us this worksheet, and it has a bunch of lines on of varying lengths. And it said, the instructions were to measure each line and write down how long the line is on your paper, using the tape measure. Well, that was just easy peasy. So I was done like in a minute, with however many it had on there. And then I kind of just sat on my hands, and the teacher had his hands full dealing with the class who couldn't figure out one end of a tape measure from the other. and there were some rabble rousers in there. Because I think in the high schools a lot of times the shop classes, it isn't so much that they attract the bad kids, if you will. I don't want to just call them bad, but hopefully people understand what I mean. A lot of times these classes, if there was a kid with disciplinary problems in another class, the teacher would kick them out, and eventually somehow they would end up in shop class. Can't handle the academics, so we'll throw him out in the shop class to see if he can do anything. And besides, he's a pain in our backside in here. We'll let this teacher out there deal with him or her. And that's unfortunate. That's how some kids are kind of herded around, if you will, with whatever they got going on in their life. But I mean, it's a reality. So there was all these kinds of people out there too, and so I'm sitting there. Well, I didn't realize it at the time. The teacher was entirely occupied with some others, but he did happen to notice that I had finished it, that, when he looked at my paper later, it was spot on. I knew how to use a tape measure. I was only there one day, as I recall, in class. And what he did, he took it upon himself to contact my counselor, who then contacted me and said, "You need to get out of this class, and we're going to put you in advanced cabinet making." Now, that was way over my pay grade, because there was a whole lot of woodworking I didn't know how to do. But the teacher wanted to put me in a better place where he figured, I could learn because I already had some of the basics down, and he figured it'd be a better environment for me. And I want to say about this particular teacher, I mean, there's a reason he was a favorite of so many, including some of the kids that had disciplinary issues or whatever. He was just that kind of a man who could read a kid and know kind of what they were capable of, what they weren't, and how to get them to give their best. He just was that kind of a person that he was able to get that out of people, all in a wood shop. I think he also taught a little bit of math. I don't think he taught 100% woodworking, but he was very gifted at woodworking himself and working with his hands, that he could impart that to the kids. But, like I say, he got, I hate to say it this way, but he got the dregs. A lot of the kids that ended up out there, they had emotional problems, they had family problems. For whatever reason, they couldn't sit still in the classroom, were causing disciplinary issues. And I guess what I really admire about him is he was able to get these kids to produce something, to do something positive, with their life, and to feel good about something. Maybe at home everything is falling apart, with the family or whatever, but when they come to school, they have someone who cares about them, and they have a class they can go to where they can produce something with their hands and genuinely start to feel good and help turn their life around, before it really goes off the rails. And I know that the time era I was going to high school, they were starting to shut down a lot of these programs, for some of these kids where, we had a metal shop, we had a mechanics shop, we had a drafting class, kind of like with engineering drawings. We had a class where you could take some electronics type stuff. So these types of classes, that would appeal to blue collar type vocations, because I mean, let's face it, not every kid is going to be an academic superstar. I mean, some of us, our smarts aren't in our head, they're in our hands. And, you can do incredible work with our hands at an academic nut job like I was more academic, that we can never dream of doing. And but it's just sad that the programs the school system would choose to close first a lot of times were, these blue collar type programs. And I believe the wood shop survived. It's still there to this day. But I don't know that the metal shop has ever come back, or mechanics. I could be mistaken. I I think the tune has changed a little bit in the school system. I know when I was there, they were bound and determined to send every kid to college. That just was where kids had to go. Well, I mean, that's rubbish. It's like putting a square peg in a round holes. For some kids, going to college just isn't what they should be doing. They need to be pursuing the trades or something that's more suited to their temperament and where their skills are. But looking back, like I say, this was probably my favorite teacher. I just admire what he was able to do, with some of these kids, and nobody else could work with, but he figured out a way to work with them and bring something positive into their life, and that to me is an outstanding teacher. And it reminds me too, most every school has an awards assembly of some kind, near the end of the year as people graduate, or it isn't just graduation, it's kind of as a reward or recognition for, whoops, for those that excel at something. They'll hand out awards, of course. Well, when I got a few awards. Hopefully every kid has that opportunity that they can excel at something and get an award. It's a wonderful feeling. It helps give you a shot in the arm, if you will, to encourage you to try to pursue excellence. One of the awards that I got, and I still have to this day mixed feelings about it, it was a woodworking award. And like I mentioned, I had only one class the entire time. It might have been for a full year, but it might have just been for half a year. I don't remember. And I had a ton to learn. I mean, there was equipment and tools I'd never used before. And so for a while, the teacher put me with another student and helped him on his project. He was building a cabinet. So this other student kind of helped teach me a little bit, of how things work, how to build a cabinet. But I really had a ton to learn. I ended up building, I think my first project was a little printer stand for the printer at home, so it served a practical purpose. Um, then I made a coffee table for the living room at home. Really enjoyed working on that. And then I think the other project that then took most of my time was building what's called a camping cabinet. Basically just like a regular kitchen cabinet, only it's made to be portable and put in the back of the truck. It's, when you head off into the brush in the truck and you take pots and pans and knives and spoons and whatever you need for camping cookery, you would put it in this cabinet. So I built a cabinet. Well, I built it from scratch. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I remember one of the areas that, this just gives you an example of how little I knew. I don't know if anybody on here has ever worked with Formica. Formica is like this hard covering that you put over the top of a cabinet, like kind of on the counter, so that it's a smooth, hard surface. I think you could take a knife and cut things over the top of it. That may not be the best for it, but you could. Makes it, it's something to put over the wood that's underneath, so you have a smooth surface above. Obviously if it's wood, it's harder to clean, harder to do stuff with. So this camping cabinet that we were putting together, my dad wanted Formica on it, so we haul it out there. And this was a heavy brute, by the way it ended up. We kind of had to build it heavy so it didn't fall apart, but it was one heavy booger to haul around too. So anyway, from Formica, well, I mean, it seems like it should be just real simple. You take the glue, this Formica stuff, glue stuff, whatever it's called, and you put it on the Formica, the back of it, and you slap it on, and that's that, right? Well, that's kind of what I thought. So I slathered a bunch of it on the back of the Formica after, cutting the piece out close to size. It was a little bit bigger because I would come in and trim it later. And I think I even put glue on, no, I think I only put it on the Formica the first time. Slapped it on there, and that was kind of towards the end of the class period. And left class fully expecting the following day that I would come back and find it perfectly dried, and I would continue working on it and take off the excess, edges or whatever, and keep going. Well, that wasn't how it was. And if there's anybody listening to this that's experienced in working with Formica, you know I made a huge mistake right at the get-go. Well, then I was kind of stubborn and I thought I still knew how to do it. I was just shocked. I got there the next day and the piece I had put on, the glue hadn't dried. It was still wet. It was loose. It had full 24 hours. There's no reason it shouldn't have, dried up, but it just didn't. Well, so I peeled it back off. I put more glue on. This time I put glue on the wood underneath, so I had a double coating of glue. And this time I thought, well, maybe it just wasn't tight enough. Other ways you can glue wood together, you use clamps, right? You glue on the pieces of wood and you clamp it together tight. This is just like with the regular Elmer's wood glue or whatever. And, within a few hours, those pieces will dry and it'll be very strong joint. Matter of fact, a lot of times you can glue a joint and it'll be even stronger than the board itself. So I was kind of treating it like that glue, and once again I left class fully believing that the next day when I came back, that it would be all glued up tight, and it just wasn't. It was still slippery, greasy, and it hadn't dried. No matter the fact that I put clamps on it and tried to hold it down tight, yeah, I was just flummoxed. I had no idea what I was doing wrong. So finally, I swallowed my pride and I went to the teacher, or it was another kid, and said, is there, what's going on here that I'm not able to get this Formica glue to work? Well, come to find out, Formica glue, you put it on the back of the piece of Formica, you put it on the wood that you're going to put it on, and then you let it dry. It seems counterintuitive. You would think that it's wet, so you need to put the two pieces together while it's wet. Well, that's not how you glue using Formica. You let it dry. So, okay, well, this time I let it dry, and it was dry to the touch. And I think I tested it on a couple smaller pieces, and wow, did that adhere tighter than a drum. So I knew that this piece, which was barely big enough to fit over the top of my cabinet, I had to set it on there exactly right, because if I didn't, then I would have to get another piece and somehow match it up, and it just wouldn't look right. I knew it wouldn't look right. So, I mean, I set up uh, this this ladder next to the place where the cabinet was sitting up, and I had a friend of mine help me, and he must have been as dumb as me. Neither of us knew how to do it. We held this thing above it, and carefully, and it's this big old floppy piece, right? But I knew the moment I set it down, it was going to adhere tight. So I had only one shot to do this, and it had to be perfect to land on there. And at the time, I remember thinking, how in the world do guys go out and do this, in kitchens that they do in homes? How do they do this? It looks perfect. And I just couldn't figure out how they did it when I was, walking a fine line trying to get it to, go up on my cabinet just so. Well, I managed to get it there just so. I think it messed it up a little bit on the corner, so there was a little tiny chip that I had to put in later where things didn't quite line up just perfect. But I managed to make it work, and this time it stuck good, so everything was hunky-dory. Well, I learned later that I still wasn't doing it quite right. Oh, what's our combine doing here? That the professionals, when they put down Formica, they don't do what I did, where they hold the piece and kind of with a lick and a prayer, if you will, try to get it to sit down there. I mean, that's just silly. But I don't think I even learned the lesson then. I didn't need to. It was close enough to being done. But it was years later when... Oh no, what are you going up here for? Someone did some work. We serve lunch at our church on Sunday, and so we have lunch tables in there that have a Formica covering. Well, I happened to be there when a professional came in and did it the right way. And all of a sudden, another light bulb went off in my mind. He used these little metal rods. He put it on top of the wood underneath, and then he set the formica down on top of those rods. And at this point, the formica and the wood underneath had both had glue applied. The glue had dried, and so it was all ready to go. But he put those rods in there to keep the two from touching until he was absolutely ready to have the formica adhere. When he was ready, he pulled out those rods one at a time, and he pressed the formica down into the wood, and of course it adhered right away. And he just walked down the line pulling those rods out. He kind of had a rubber mallet, as I recall, to help pound a little bit of the air out, and it was really easy the way he had done it, by setting it up right to begin with. So by that time I was long out of high school, so I didn't learn that lesson for a while. But I guess the reason I share all this is the point is I didn't really know what I was doing. I learned as quick as I could. I enjoyed my time in there, and then I ended up getting an award for the woodworking at the assembly, and that's a wonderful thing. And it isn't even something that the teacher gave, so it wasn't his choice. And I think if it had been left up to him, he wouldn't have done that. It was voted on by my peers, and I'll never forget this other kid who came up to me. He was, I guess I would say, more of a troubled kid, and he was one of my friends, I would say, in class. He was working on his own project, I think, just in close proximity to mine, and he was just as good at this as I was, I feel. And he just told me one time, he says, "Hey, by the way, I voted for you. I was, just so proud that you got the award, and I just want you to know I voted for you." And like I say, I've had mixed feelings about that ever since, because this other kid, I don't think he won a single award, and here he voted for someone. I got a couple of other awards, in some other areas where I did okay in school, and this kid here had no recognition, and I just wanted to give him my award. But I mean, he had voted for me, which was a really nice thing to do. But I know there were several other kids that must have done that too, and I guess I admire the humility of someone like that, to still, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just, that that award, I'm humbled to have received it. I mean, they gave I think the gift was a chisel that came with it, a hand chisel. I used that chisel over the years. I don't know that I even have it anymore. Eventually it was a tool that just got used up. But to me, it was kind of a prize for a number of years. There was two of us that got this award, and it was just really neat to have that. But all that to say, I really admire the guy that had that woodworking program. He's actually a neighbor of mine. He lives, oh, I can't throw a rock to his house. He's maybe 2.5 miles away. He's retired now. Just a wonderful man. I've enjoyed every interaction I've had with him. He's continued woodworking. And when COVID happened and kids weren't able to go to school, I know he opened his own home shop. He worked with some local kids so they could continue to have, experience with some hands-on learning. I guess once a teacher, always a teacher. Just a wonderful man. And, I hope we can all have experiences like that, where somebody in our life touches our life somehow, and invests in us, and believes enough in us enough to, invest their own time to help make us a better person, make us more productive. And I don't know, I sure didn't see it when I was a kid, all this. I look back and remember the people that did all this for me, and it's just amazing. I hope every kid has that opportunity, and probably what I need to do is to try to find some of these teachers before they pass on, and tell them thank you in person for what they did for me. And I guess I would suggest that Everybody do that if they had that kind of experience. It's easy to forget the people who invested in us or took their time to make us the kind of people that we are. It's very easy to forget that. Sometimes I think we have so much pride, we think, well, we've always been this way. We've always been this smart, or we've always had these skills, or whatever it is. And it just isn't the case. I know we work hard for what we have, but there's others that have sacrificed and taken their time to build us. I guess that's kind of what school's all about. Well, look at that. Even I say that, I look at the clock, and I know I already have over half an hour, and the equipment stops anyhow. Let me just get him out of the way. I think he was trying to follow the combine and offload him. So I'm thinking I probably have another episode here, and oh, good grief, I'm not in your way. Oh, in this combine. I gotta help you find the corner. I have no idea what I'm doing still playing this game at this time of the morning, but I'm just enjoying the map, wanting to finish this harvest here, enjoying sharing a few things. I hope I haven't bored anybody to tears too much, but if you've listened to this, thank you for giving it a listen, for giving your valuable time to listen to my drivel. Um, Otherwise, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, and best wishes whatever you're doing in your life at the moment. And thanks for stopping by. I think I'll quit the episode here and talk to you all later. Bye-bye for now.